This is my Tesla Model 3. I've been charging it for free for quite some time now, and in this video I want to give you 5 ways that you can charge your Tesla or other electric vehicle for free as well. So the first thing you can do is download this app called PlugShare. This is basically just a search engine for EV chargers. As you can see here, it has a map of all the chargers that are around me, and like every good search engine, it has filters. So I can hit this all filters button, scroll down under the amenities section, and then if I hit free charge and then view, now it's only showing me chargers that are free. Now, before you get too excited and drive over to one of these, there's a couple things I recommend checking first. The first thing is to check whether or not it's restricted. So restricted basically just means that access to the charger is only for certain people. A lot of the times it'll be a hotel that you need to be staying at in order to use, or it could be a condo or apartment complex that you need to be a resident of in order to use the charger. But the map legend for restricted is brown. So all of these brown ones that you see here have restricted access. Sometimes the non-brown ones also are restricted, so just double check that. So if you find one that's not restricted, the next thing I recommend checking is whether or not it's under repair. So this wrench icon here means that it needs repair or is broken in some way. As you can see here, it says out of order, parts ordered. So just don't waste your time driving over to it if it's broken and not going to work. But if you find one that's not restricted and is not broken, the third and final thing I recommend checking is the check-ins. So the check-ins honestly are probably the most valuable part of this app, because these are from real people that went to the charger and either used it or tried to use it. And as you can see here, this one says that it looks like the light is on, which seems like it should be working, but it isn't charging. And these check-ins can give you really valuable insights on whether or not the charger actually works, and also whether or not it's free and how much it costs. As you can see here, we have check-ins from Tim Cook apparently, also more people saying that it's not working. But if you're able to find a free charger that is not restricted, not under repair, and has good check-ins like this one does, then congratulations, you can go over there and charge for free. So I'm actually gonna go head over to a free charger that's near me so I can show you guys what it looks like and how it works. So let's go head over there now. Oh, and by the way, PlugShare is not sponsoring this video or anything. It's just a free app, and there are a bunch of other ones that do the same thing. There's ChargePoint, Charge Bank or something, I think. I'll put them all up on the screen right now, but some of them do work better in certain countries than others, so I think it's worth doing a quick Google search to find out which of them works the best in your country or your area. I'm pretty sure PlugShare is the biggest one in the United States, so that's why I mentioned that one. But yeah, try out all the other ones. Let me know if you guys have a favorite one down in the comments, but I just went with PlugShare because that's the first one I heard of. And we're almost at this free charger, so I'll see you guys in a second. So here we are at this free charger. There are actually 4 of these total in this parking lot, and they used to be called Volta chargers, but apparently Shell bought Volta a couple years back, so now they're called Shell Recharge, but it's basically the same thing. As you can see here, they have these big screens on the side, and you just plug in and they give you free charging. So it's pretty awesome. And you may be wondering, how can this company afford to give away electricity for free, especially here in Southern California where electricity is so expensive? And that's a very good question. And the answer is because of the big screens on either side. They show advertisements. So basically they sell the ad space and then they use that revenue to cover the cost of the electricity so they can give away the charging for free. And these free chargers are also typically located in large shopping centers. So as we can see here, we have a Kohl's, a grocery store, Crumble Cookie, and a Starbucks, things like that. So all these companies will usually pool their money together to get one of these installed because they know free charging is gonna bring extra foot traffic into their stores and bring them money, so it's valuable to everybody. The one that I'm at is actually broken, unfortunately, but I did charge at that one last night, and it worked pretty well. It is kind of slow. It's a level 2 charger, so I think it would take like 10 and a half hours to fully charge my car. I'll put the amperage up on the screen about how much it actually was as far as the charging rate. But hey, it's free, so you can't really complain either way. One thing to note is that these do have a time limit. I think this one is 2 hours, and sometimes they'll give you a period of time where it's free, and then after that period of time they'll start charging you. So it's definitely worth looking up the rules before you plug in so you don't accidentally get charged. But I didn't actually need an app or anything. Some people have told me you need an app to use these. Maybe I just got lucky. But I just plugged in and it started charging normally. So if you have a Tesla, you will need an adapter to use this. This one just came with the car. But I also recommend, if you're going to be using this, getting this thing, which is called a Karen lock, is what a lot of people call it. I don't know what the real name is for it, but basically this goes over this part so that the clip that holds the adapter in can't be taken off. They call it a Karen lock because sometimes people will come and if they see you charging, they'll just pull the charger out and then use it to charge their car. So this gives you a little extra layer of security. I'll put a link to where I got this one. It's like a couple bucks. It's just a 3D printed thing. But yeah, I do recommend getting that as well. But yeah, this is the first way that you can charge your car for free. So if you have one of these free chargers in your area, then great. But if you don't, we have a couple other methods of free charging we're going to go over. So let's move on to number 2. So the second way that you can charge your electric vehicle for free is with solar panels. Now, obviously, solar panels themselves aren't exactly free unless you win them through some sort of sweepstakes or something. However, every solar panel system comes with a period of time known as the payback period. This is basically the amount of time it takes for the solar panels to pay for themselves with electricity savings. And how long this takes depends on a bunch of factors, including how much you pay for electricity in your area, how much you pay for the solar panel system, and how sunny it is where you live. But according to Google, the average payback period is 7 to 10 years. So let's just go with the higher end of that range and say, for example, I installed these panels 10 years ago. What that means is now the power that they're producing is essentially free, right? They paid for themselves with electricity savings, and now I'm basically getting free power to charge my car and run my house. And this is especially true if I'm using the solar panels to charge my car during the middle of the day when it's sunniest, because this is typically when the panels are producing more electricity than the house is consuming. And charging your car during the middle of the day is even more important if you live in California and are affected by the net energy metering rule 3.0, which basically cut the amount of energy credits that you can get that your solar panels produce by 75%. So basically, if you can use your solar panels to charge your car during the day, you can get full usage out of that electricity instead of sending it back to the utility and only getting 25 cents on the dollar. Another way that I've seen people use solar panels to charge their EV is with portable systems like foldable solar arrays and a portable battery bank. I saw this video by Tech of Tech where he used a little solar array and a Jackery portable power station to charge his Tesla. And it worked. I mean, he got a couple miles of range in I think a day or a couple hours worth of sunlight. And I think this is a really cool system in the event of emergency so you don't get stranded. But as far as ROI goes, I'm pretty sure the payback period for a system like this would be longer than the life of your vehicle. So it's probably not the most economic choice, because when I looked up how much a 400-watt solar array and a 2 kilowatt-hour battery pack is, it's about $2,500 from what I could see on Amazon. And for this price, yeah, you're probably never going to pay that back, right? Because 400 watts is not really all that much, and 2 kilowatt hours is only about 3% of my Tesla Model 3's battery. So just for me to get a full charge out of the system will probably take several days, maybe over a week or more. So as far as economics goes, it probably doesn't make the most sense to go with this option. But as mentioned earlier, I think it's a cool option for emergencies. So if you get stranded in the middle of a desert or something, you can get a couple miles of range to get back to civilization. Or if you camp a lot or someone that's off-grid, I guess this is a solution as well. But speaking of charging during the day, let's move on to our third method of free charging. So method number 3 is charging at work. So a lot of top tech companies like Microsoft, Apple, and Google have free EV chargers on campus for employees to use. And a lot of tech adjacent companies like data centers, power plants, things like that will also oftentimes have free chargers available for employee use as well. I've personally had 2 jobs now where there were free chargers available, but I totally understand that not everyone is fortunate enough to have an employer that provides things like that. So I just want to mention a couple things that you could use to pitch the idea to your company and hopefully increase the chances that they will say yes. Because at the end of the day, if you ask your company or office complex to install a charger and they say no, then you're right back to where you started. So I found this article here that lists a couple of benefits to employers for installing EV chargers. So one is employee retention, because if employees have free chargers, then they're going to be less likely to leave and go to a different company. The second thing is enhanced corporate image. Corporations or companies will be able to say that they offset the carbon emissions from their employee commutes and that they are more environmentally conscious, so that can be beneficial for the company in that way. Potential public revenue if the company decides to open it up for non-employees and charge for it. Increased property values, tax incentives, and grants. Most of these are on the state or municipality level, so you have to look that up in your area to see if there are any tax benefits to installing one, and having a competitive advantage in hiring, because it is a pretty nice perk to have free charging at work. Another one that's not added here that I do want to bring up are ESG scores. So ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. And this is basically a score that is given to companies to evaluate how they do on these 3 metrics. And installing an EV charger increases the E of the ESG score, right? Environmental impact. And basically, if companies have a higher ESG score, it'll increase the chances that they will attract investment from big investment firms. So this is especially applicable if you work for a company that heavily relies on investment. And I know ESG scores can get kind of political and they've gotten controversial in recent years, which I really don't feel like going into. But the only reason I'm mentioning all this stuff is so that it gives you some bargaining chips so that when you go to your employer and pitch this idea to them, it'll hopefully come across less as if you just want some free stuff and more like, hey, I want to get this charger installed and here are all the reasons why it would be beneficial to the company to do so. And hopefully if you present it in this way, it'll greatly increase the chances that they say yes. So you'll probably have to pitch this idea to whoever is high up enough in your company to make this sort of decision, or if you work in an office complex that's shared by a bunch of different businesses, you probably have to figure out whoever the property manager or property owner is and bring up the idea to them. But I really do think this is worth a try because at the end of the day, if you ask, the worst they're going to say is no. And I also want to mention that you don't necessarily need a name brand charger installed at your work. All you really need is a 240 volt outlet or 240 volt panel. And then you can buy your own level 2 charger like this one here, which is a 40 amp charger with a 16-foot cord on it. And then you can plug this into an outlet and use it that way. So this is a level 2 charger that I bought on Amazon. I'll leave a link to it down in the description below. But as you can see here, it has the charge controller, and then the end has a Tesla connection, so I don't need an adapter to plug it into my car, which is pretty nice. And the other end goes to a 240 volt NEMA outlet, which I actually don't have one of these outlets at work. So what I did is I installed this adapter that I think is meant for RVs, but basically it goes from this 240 volt connection to this connection that I don't remember the name of, but I'll put it up on the screen. And then this I'm able to plug into 240 volt panel and into a 50 amp breaker and use it that way because this charger is 40 amps, which puts it at 80% of the 50 amp breaker, which is the recommended amount for current. So I can use this at full current draw and not worry about tripping the breaker or anything in the panel. I think having a level 2 charger in general is a good idea because you can also use this at home or maybe when you're traveling or other people's houses or something like that. So this is another cool option. Obviously, you still have to get permission before you go and just plug this in at your work. But I think this is another cool route to go because you don't necessarily have to convince your company to shell out thousands of dollars to install a charger like from ChargePoint or something like that. Instead, you could just ask them to plug into an outlet or panel that already exists. But if you're unable to convince your employer to install a free charger, but they have one that costs money instead, or if they allow you to connect to a 240 volt outlet and pay them back for the electricity that you use, it's probably still worth going down that route because in general, industrial or commercial rates for electricity are cheaper than residential rates. So you can still probably save a lot of money by charging at work versus charging at home because industrial or commercial rates for electricity are typically the wholesale value, so generally cheaper. And charging at work is not just good for your wallet in terms of saving money, but it's also generally good for the grid and for the environment because most people are at work during the middle of the day, which just so happens to be the time period where the most amount of renewables is usually produced, mostly because of solar. And here in California, we've actually had a lot of days in 2025 so far where over 100% of demand is supplied by wind, water, and solar for at least a portion of the day. And a lot of times the grid actually produces too much renewable energy and there's sometimes nowhere for it to go. So the utilities will actually make the price of electricity negative for certain time periods where they're actually basically paying people to take the electricity. Unfortunately, you can't really take advantage of this negative pricing during the day unless you own a power plant or maybe if you have a Powerwall and participate in a virtual power plant program or something like that. But the reason I bring this up is because the middle of the day often has excess energy on the grid. So if there's a bunch of cars charging during the day, then that gives it somewhere for it to go. And then that can lessen the strain on the grid and also charge your car with generally cleaner energy because it's a majority coming from renewables rather than fossil fuels like at night during time periods where there's not as much solar. So if you're able to charge at work, I highly recommend it, but if you can't, let's move on to way number 4. So the fourth method is to take advantage of manufacturer incentives. So EVs are still at a bit of a premium price point when compared to gasoline-powered cars, and the companies that sell EVs know this, so they will oftentimes give incentives for people to buy their electric vehicles. So I found this chart here from the CNET article. I'll link it down in the description below, but there are some pretty cool incentives listed out here. Like if you buy a 2024 Audi e-tron, you can get free unlimited DC charging for 2 years. If you buy a BMW i7, you can get free unlimited charging for 3 years. As you can see, a lot of these are a certain amount of kilowatt hours. So if you buy F-150 Lightning, you can get 250 kilowatt hours of free charging. And this chart is pretty big. I'll link it again down in the description so you can read it. I don't want to go over all of them or else this video will get too long. But as you can see here, there are a lot of incentives for buying EVs that you can take advantage of. So I would definitely check these out and see which one is the best that you want to go with. But there is one manufacturer incentive that I think is better than all of these, and that is the Tesla Model S that comes with free supercharging for the life of the vehicle. So when Tesla first released the Model S, EVs weren't really that popular yet, so they needed a really good incentive to get people to buy them. So they made it so that if you bought a Tesla Model S, you would have free supercharging forever, basically, for the life of the vehicle. And they also did this for the Model X as well. But if you're gonna go this route and buy a used Model S or X that's grandfathered into this free charging, then I would double check the date, because according to this article, it needs to have been ordered before January 15th, 2017 in order to qualify, because after this date they changed it to where it's no longer for the life of the vehicle but only for the life of the first owner. So if you're going to go this route, buy one of these used ones, double and triple check the date that it was ordered on so that you don't get gypped and you actually get the free charging for life. Now the downside of this is these cars are pretty old. I mean, 2016 was almost 10 years ago, which is kind of crazy to say, but I guess that's true. And they might need a battery replacement or something like that. But it is a pretty cool perk to have, and I think it's something worth looking into if you're looking at used EVs. So I'll leave a link to this article that I'm referencing down in the description below. It does a good job breaking down the timeline of the different free charging perks from Tesla, so that if you're looking at used ones, you can check the manufacturing date or order dates on this article, and then you can see where in the timeline it falls and whether or not you'll actually get that free charging. And I also just read a different article that says that Model S's ordered after December 13th, 2024 will have free supercharging, but only for the life of the owner. So that one is not transferable from my understanding. But yeah, if any of you guys have taken advantage of any manufacturing incentives, either from Tesla or any other company that gives you free charging, please let me know in the comments down below how that works and if you think it was worth it. I don't personally know anyone who has gotten free charging this route, but yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys and see your feedback on this. But from my perspective, this does seem like a good thing to take advantage of if you can, especially if you're in the market for a used model and you can get one that's grandfathered in to free charging for life. I mean, why not do that? So the fifth and final method of free EV charging is a couple different things, actually. I just want to go over some honorable mentions. One is charging at national parks. So a lot of national parks here in the United States, and I believe in Canada as well, have free chargers available. I found 2 different articles that I'll link down in the description below from the National Park Services website that list free chargers in Yellowstone and Death Valley National Park. And there are a lot of other free chargers at other national parks as well. If you personally know any national parks that have them, please let me know in the description below. But I think there is a map for all the free chargers for different national parks. I'll try and find that and link it down in the description for you guys. Also, a lot of colleges and universities have free chargers that you can use. And we mentioned this a little bit earlier, but hotels as well. So a lot of hotels will give you free charging if you're staying there. But if you're traveling somewhere and you find 2 hotels that are in the same place and about the same price, but one has free charging and one doesn't, then might as well just go with free charging and save a little bit of money. And you should be able to find those 3 types of EV chargers by using the first method of using an EV charger search engine like PlugShare. But just in case they don't come up when you use those search engines, because they're not always 100% reliable, I'm just mentioning those so that if you are planning a trip to a national park or a college or something, then you know to look up on the website and try and see if they have some free chargers so that you can use them while you're there. And lastly, I just want to mention that technically any method of generating electricity can be used to charge a car. You could use a row machine, an exercise bike, even a homemade water wheel. Basically, if you can rotate something, you can generate electricity with it, and then you could use that electricity to charge a car. Now, in no way am I saying this is by any means practical or realistic, but it is technically possible. I did see a video where someone used a row machine to charge their Tesla, which I think is pretty cool. I mean, it would take, I think, several days of biking or rowing to actually charge a car, but it is a cool concept, and it's just cool to know that technically any way you can generate electricity, you could charge your car. But that's it for this video. I'll put the 5 methods back up on the screen so you can screenshot them for your records so you know. And if you guys know any ways you can get free gasoline for your gas powered car, please let me know down in the description below. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.